Hey everyone, me again, plugging the YouTube channel. We're having such a good time doing these hot takes. Scott didn't think he'd like it that much, and he's actually volunteering to do them all the time. So that's a pretty big deal. We would love it if you would subscribe and be part of our community. We read the comments. We take them to heart, not the really mean ones, but we're trying to build something special here at Raging Moderates, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. So please subscribe.
Please hit subscribe for more hot takes. Welcome to Raging Moderates. I'm Scott Galloway.
I'm Jessica Tarlov.
Today, Trump spoke to the United Nations General Assembly. His administration is looking more and more isolated on Israel's war in Gaza. While country after country has recognized a Palestinian state and condemned Israel's actions, the U.S. has gone the other way, doubling down with political cover and military support. And now, here's Trump talking about his so-called progress on ending the wars.
Likewise, in a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going for 31 years, 2 of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years. One was 28 years. I ended 7 wars.
Didn't you know?
Do you know what wars he's referring to, the 28 and 31-year?
The 7 conflicts the president referenced that he solved, Israel and Iran, which it was a big win for Israel there, but I would say that conflict is not settled. Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, Armenia and Azerbaijan, Thailand and Cambodia, India and Pakistan, which both have come and said that it didn't happen. They spoke out against that. Egypt and Ethiopia and Serbia and Kosovo.
Wow.
And Erdogan, the Turkish president, was on Special Report last night with Bret Baier, and he really took Trump to the shed. I mean, he said, do you remember what he said on the campaign trail? He said he was going to end the Ukraine-Russia war on day 1.
Right.
And he also told us that he was going to end the Gaza war. And that hasn't happened either. Erdogan's on his way to the White House for a meeting where he's going to, try to get F-35s from us. I was surprised that he was that forthcoming in that level of criticism. But, this is just, as per usual, a litany of Trump absurdism. He did a regular stump speech talking about how we have the greatest economy in the world, lower prices for everyone, which flies in the face of all of the data, ending the 7 wars. Everyone says I should get the Nobel Peace Prize, so I guess he's auditioning for it. But every day it becomes clearer and clearer that that is not the case. It seems like, greatest hits, where he says the UN is worthless. And there are a lot of people who are supportive of international institutions who believe strongly that the UN needs reform. And we've talked about positive impact that he's had on the NATO alliance and getting people to pay their fair share, right, for the common defense. But, saying that all he's gotten from the United Nations was a broken escalator and a faulty teleprompter is quite a way to bring the world together and to find a way forward for a diplomatic solution. What are you feeling about Trump at the UN?
Look, I have mixed feelings on the UN. I think they have a nearly impossible task trying to herd the mother of all 159 cats. I do think they do some good work. I do think that also they have come across, in certain instances, as anti-Semitic. When you recognize a Palestinian state, you create incentives to conduct October 7th-like operations, because maybe then there will be a dramatic response. People will have empathy for you, and the UN and France and other nations will, focus on your statehood. So obviously this is a complicated issue, but I would argue his weakness, or his perceived weakness, has already started 2 more wars. When Putin sends attack aircraft into Poland and Romania, he's starting 2 wars. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't an errant drone pilot. He has decided that Trump is weak, Trump is distracted, and he likes me and doesn't have the balls or the support to coordinate a response. I was at a party last night, and I met, I think, the vice minister of Poland. By the way, Poland's economy is just booming. It's sort of an economic miracle, and they're taking their defense spending from 2% to 5%. I think their GDP is around $1 trillion. So you're talking about a $50 billion defense buildup, and that would make them, I think, one of the 6 or 8 biggest military powers in the world. So I think he's made the world a much more dangerous place. I don't think he's solving wars. And the lack of leadership here, it's like my parents didn't miss TV because they didn't know you don't know what you don't miss. I think the president could have played a really powerful role. I think it's a shame that he didn't exert more leadership. He goes through the Middle East. He goes to the Gulf. He skips Turkey and Israel. Why? Because they're not going to give him a plane because they're still democracies, and he's going to have a tough time extracting skyscrapers and developments and investments in his crypto scams for his kids. So he skips the places that probably are the most geopolitically sensitive and important right now. And what's a real shame is that a better president could have organized a pan-Arab force and put pressure on Israel to have some sort of, I am sympathetic to the argument that an occupying force has a responsibility to ensure a certain level of humanitarian aid.
Yep.
At the same time, I'm sympathetic to, and I have a bias here, that we as Americans wouldn't have left Nazis in Germany. We would have said, sorry, folks, we're going to keep fighting and keep killing your people and keep bombing you until you lay down your weapons. So this is a difficult situation, but the president could have played a key role here instead of what feels like just sort of egging Netanyahu on and also, having Netanyahu do some of the dirty work of the West, whether it's taking out terrorists, decapitating the proxies of Iran, taking down their air defenses, destabilizing the Houthis, who had the ability to disrupt supply chain through the canal. This is a complicated situation. He could be playing a much more active role in trying to bring to an end the Sudanese civil war, which is causing more death than my understanding is Ukraine and the war in Gaza combined. So he could be playing, and also meeting with the joint staffs, meeting with people from Poland, meeting people, from France, and basically saying, okay, the number is 17% in terms of the amount of energy infrastructure that has been taken out in Russia or damaged refining infrastructure. If we can get that number to 40% by providing them with surface-to-air guidance systems, better missiles, more ground support, this war is going to end. If Putin starts losing his oil infrastructure, the whole economy is going to collapse, and all of a sudden he's going to decide that let's give peace a chance. There are a lot of things that a more thoughtful, assertive president in the U.S. with the largest military in history could be doing right now to try and solve conflicts and bring wars to an end. And also, the best way to end a war is to win it. And meanwhile, Putin is flying attack aircraft into Romania and Poland. So he's not only not solving wars, in my view, he's creating instability and insecurity and fraying alliances such that we are weaker and our enemies perceive that weakness, and it has emboldened them. So he's like Bob Iger, but more dangerous, because he is enabling autocrats to essentially declare war. I mean, essentially, Putin has sort of declared war on Poland.
On NATO.
Yeah.
I mean, because Article 4 had to be invoked because of that move, which is a massive deal.
That's right.
I just wanted to, before we wrap, make sure that we talk about the fact that Britain, Canada, Australia, and Portugal have now all recognized Palestinian statehood.
Yep.
And I thought that Macron's interview was very much worth everybody's time on Face the Nation from Sunday, talking about why this is an important step. And he actually had a day after plan for when this war ends, something that the U.S. has not put forward. And obviously, we're not recognizing Palestinian statehood at this point. But when you have allies of that level that are doing this and adding their name to the ever-growing list, I think it's 140 other countries at this point, that is, a big piece of the global puzzle that they are going to be talking about throughout this UNGA week. And, I haven't seen that really be the crux at all of what Donald Trump is talking about, but that's certainly top of mind for a lot of people who care about global affairs. I completely agree with you about the Putin situation. Losing Modi to Putin and President Xi is a huge piece of that. The fact also that Turkey continues to buy oil and that the EU says that they're going to stop, but that doesn't begin until 2027. That gives Russia, hundreds of billions of dollars in the meantime to continue financing this unjust war on innocent Ukrainians who are only defending their democratic state. So a lot of moving pieces there, and it doesn't seem like Donald Trump is much up to the moment.
Yeah, this amateur hour is turning into amateur day and amateur four-year tenure. Charles Kushner, who's the U.S. ambassador to France, wrote a public letter accusing France of insufficient action against anti-Semitism. And as someone who likes to think they're sensitive and recognizes anti-Semitism, that is not how you go about it.
And Macron called him out. Said this is not how a diplomat behaves.
Yeah, Macron said, look, boss, giving money. By the way, just to remind everyone, Charles Kushner spent time in prison for hiring a prostitute and then filming it to entrap his brother. And then the judge said, okay, this is beyond the pale. I'm going to stick you in prison. And now he's in what I would argue is the most beautiful ambassador's residence in the world in Paris. But anyway, this isn't how you handle diplomatic relations, because what this means is Charles Kushner from this point forward is going to be totally ineffective. No representative of the French government is going to listen to, much less meet with Charles Kushner. And France is a big economy. They're the second largest exporter of weapons. They're an important economic force. And when he brings over people to try and meet with French business people, from this point, he has rendered himself totally ineffective as an ambassador in exchange for another press release where they can beat their chest and crowd out Epstein for a day. It's just, it's amateur hour here.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
All right, let's leave it there. We'll be back with more hot takes, Jess. More hot takes. They're
hot
sizzling.
Takes,
hot
takes.
wings. Hot wings turns into a podcast.